Jen, are you ready?
Yes, that's
Brittany, I think we're ready to start.
Yeah, you can mute yourself on here too. Not just on.
Is everyone ready? This meeting will now come to order. Mrs. Jerry, will you please lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Jerry, can you please read the New York Mills mission statement?
Through combined efforts of the students, staff, parents, and community members, our mission is to foster the confidence, knowledge, cognition, and character necessary to instill a strong work ethic, to create an environment of tolerance and respect, and to ignite an attitude of inquiry and enthusiasm for learning that will enable students to become productive, responsible citizens.
Okay. Acceptance of agenda. Consent agenda, let's see here. Bi- Okay, business office reports as well as CSE reports. No, prior. Okay, that wasn't here. 1.3, acceptance of agenda. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Jordan? Second? Mrs. Albright? Okay, no president's message. BOCES representative report, Dr. Shalmadine?
Dr. Priscelli sent us the report. The OHM board met in virtual session on May 13th. Among the items discussed were a report from Mr. Cowan, Assistant Superintendent for Finance, regarding a recent audit of the BOCES finances by the New York State Comptroller. No major issues or concerns at the time. Mr. Cowan and the board also reviewed a window replacement capital project. That project is proceeding accordingly. Dr. Kilburn gave a detailed overview of the current situation regarding school programs and COVID-19. A re-entry protocol and other issues are under discussion. Dr. Kilburn also noted the BOCES budget. The board did approve a budget of $72,109,518.12, but this may remain somewhat fluid due to current circumstances. There may be instances of continuous budget revision. The administrative budget voted on by cooperative boards did pass, and all incumbents were returned to the board. Mr. Anthony Nicotero was selected by the Sequoia board to replace Mr. John Griffin, who retired. Staff recognition will be a virtual YouTube Zoom event held on June 2nd. There were 15 retirees to date. Similar student ceremonies are being planned. Ann Turner and Scott Morris offered an update on PPD programs, and the board then went into executive session to discuss personnel.
Thank you. On to committee reports. Policy, Mrs. Albright.
We have three that we're going to be reviewing tonight for the first read. There's the data security and privacy policy, the education records policy, and information security breach policy. They are going to be reviewed at the next policy meeting, and then approval will be sought at the New York meeting. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Transportation, Mr. Carmen. Health and Safety Committee, Mrs. Albright.
I have no idea.
Facilities, Mrs. Jordan. Communications.
We had a brief meeting yesterday just to touch base on the communications that have been going on as far as the budget vote and the information that's been sent out on that. We are also discussing a new app that we're going to put into place, and that's coming together. Hopefully that'll be out by the time school starts, we're thinking. So that's pretty much, we just did a quick touch base yesterday.
Thank you, Mrs. Hubley. Consent agenda. Items to be approved, 3.2, business office reports, 3.3, CSE reports. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Hubley? Mr. Carmen? Any discussion? 3.4, approval of the minutes dated May 5th, 2020. Do I have a motion for acceptance? Mrs. Albright, second. Mrs. Hubley. Old business. There's nothing on the capital outlay update. Capital project update. Mr. Santomassino, do you have something to add?
I do. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. I would just like to kind of just take a second to explain how we got to the point where we're at now on the EPC, Energy Performance Contract, and then just kind of give my opinion on what I thought about the 4 proposals. Can everybody hear me?
Mr. Santomassino, the proposals for those who are not on the committee are in the corner of your table.
So just a quick snapshot of just how we got here, and I won't take long and go into really great detail. We identified some needs that we felt would benefit students, staff, and our district overall, and obviously nurture higher learning. We got together with Dr. Shamada and myself and our architect team. We put out a soft scope, if you will. We identified some things that the district could use, and we know what they are: lighting and environmental controls and building controls, some efficiencies to our boiler system, water circulation, thermostats, things of that nature. So when we compiled that data, architects go ahead and put that out to create an RFP, request for proposal, on our builders exchange and contractor sites. We had 4 respondees. They were CNS companies, Danforth, Day Automation, and Johnson Controls. So in front of you, you have your proposal evaluation criteria, and that's how we got to where we are now. And I spent a lot of time looking over these. Architects spent time looking over them. Dr. Shulman spent time looking over them. And 2 stood out. The 2 that stood out that looked where they've dotted all their I's, crossed their T's. And you know, even before I get to that, during that request for proposal, them companies come in and meet with us. And at that meeting, prior to them getting this data together and getting these packages out to us, I spend, you know, a whole day with them as a group. I walk them through the building, I tour the facility, answer questions, give them paperwork, give them data, give them drawings, explain to them my concerns, what I think are needs, and things of that nature. And then they have a clear idea of what our expectations are, what district needs are, and then they also come up with some ideas of their own that we consider, which is obviously very helpful because they are, you know, the true professionals in that EPC. So with all that data, they compile what they put forth to us. It was CNS, Danforth, Day Automation, and Johnson Controls. The 2 that stood out the most and are seen to be very, very, very close in comparison, contractually, financially, experience-wise, is Danforth and Day. CNS has a lot of moving parts, and I don't think their specialty is EPC, and Johnson Control the same. And with that being said, what I also, you know, in my mind compiled was how much time I spent with each one of them. So following that meeting, I give them my cell phone number and I tell them at any time you would like to call me and come out for a personal tour and sit in the office and talk with me just to get as much data compiled to give us the best data back in these proposals and the best numbers was Danforth and Day. I spent an ample amount of time with both companies. So you can see they're Danforth's at 1.42, Day Automation at 1.43. Pretty much almost the same contract. So going through them, the biggest deciding factor for me was I like to work with a company that their name is on the job, where they're not subbing out all the work. In some capital projects, you can't have someone that's all they do is that job because there's so many moving parts in a capital project. But in an EPC, our main shot is, you know, energy performance. So that company that we pick can just be an energy performance company, and that's Danforth. So just an example, Danforth, they have their own tin knockers. They got their own pipe fitters. They got their own electricians. they got their own managers. So if I call them and we have an issue, I'm talking to them about their product. We're not calling Day for Day to say, hang on, let me call my sub and see where the subs are. So I guess that was kind of the deciding factor in my thought of who I would recommend would be Danforth. So that being said, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Samasino?
If I could, would you want to have any of the companies come in and present to the board? Or are you comfortable with the recommendation and moving forward?
I would suggest having them present to the board.
Okay.
Super. Super.
All four, or just Danforth and Day, or just Danforth?
And again, anyone else's opinion? Mrs. Albright?
We need to prove what happened with the statute. I would say, the basic, two residences, we want that.
Mr. Carmen?
Yeah, we felt that in our last meeting that Kim and I felt that Danforth and Day were our two choices. We were just wanting to see what Mr. Samasino's thoughts were and what he, so, which is pretty much on the same wavelength as what we thought he was going to say. Whatever, you know.
Mrs. Jerry? Mrs. Hubbard?
I would go with Danforth and Day.
Okay, thank you.
All right, personnel report, no report. Approval of the New York Mills Union Free School District 2020-21 calendar. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Hubley. Second on that, Mr. Carmen. 5.3, date discussion for the reorg meeting, July 7th or July 14th. I just want to add, from past experience, the first available date is always a good idea to jump on this one here. If there's an issue, you still have some time to meet before the 15th. The 7th or the 14th? Mrs. Hubley, do you have a preference?
I would say go with the 7th first in case we need to go out.
Is that the general consensus? Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Now 5.4 and 5.5. 5.4, data security and privacy policy is the first read. And 5.5, the education records policy, first read. And 5.6, I apologize, information security breach policy, first read. Would you like to speak on them, Dr.
Yep.
Summerton?
Do you want a motion first to get it on the table?
Okay, motion. Mrs. Jerry, second. Mrs. Jordan.
All right, so these policies are necessary for the data privacy security policy or procedures. So all of the things that we need to keep in mind for the 2D data privacy, student information privacy, these are the policies that specifically speak to that.
Okay, so if there's any questions available, you've got a few weeks to get them into the district office so the policy committee could answer those questions and revise if necessary. Okay, moving on, K-12 reports, principal reports. Mr. Dodge, Mrs. Bocci.
Hi, good evening. The update so far is that, we're entering into our typical end of the year protocols. Teachers are still teaching, they're grading, they're assessing, they're doing report cards, they're trying to clean their rooms. So there's a lot going on. And I think the biggest things that's still on their shoulders is what's next year look like. So I think that there's, it's hard to feel like there's this clean, summer's here and we can exhale a little bit. It's hard not knowing what we're coming into. I know that a lot of the teachers are looking forward to meeting on the 18th to begin discussions about what reopening is going to look like or could look like. So there's a lot of excitement around that possibility. So I know that, our teachers, our students, our parents have done a great job in a brand new platform that's, never been basically never been to this degree set in motion. So they've done a fabulous job with that, but I think they're to the point where it's over for them. They're tired. They're ready for summer. So that's all I have. Thank you very much for an outstanding year, and thanks for your support always.
Thank you, Mr. Dodds. Mrs. Facci, do you have?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? So at this point, like Mr. Dodge said, teachers are kind of taking it day by day with the unknown. We are meeting on Thursday to review the procedures for report cards and the closing of their rooms. Report cards will go out on the 19th, or by the 19th. As you know, we have a plan in place for an in-person graduation that I've been working with Mrs. Taylor on. Also, Mrs. Ellis and I have been working to do some virtual presentations for the junior and senior awards. The awards for seniors are actually going to be delivered in person at graduation, but we still want to do a virtual presentation to all of them, and then have the juniors maybe do a little reception and celebration in the fall. Mrs. Ellis and I are also going to work with Rebecca on doing a presentation with some 7th graders and Mrs. Foote, which she usually does in person with 6th graders to kind of talk to them about what 7th grade is going to look like and take any questions that they may have. That's about it.
Thank you, Mrs. Facci. Thank you, Mrs. Facci. Superintendent's report.
Yep. So as Mr. Dodge started to talk about, I'm bringing together a committee of teachers and support staff to start to brainstorm what does reopening look like, given some different scenarios. We've been waiting for guidance from the state. That isn't coming, so we're going to start to take a little bit of control over that. We're looking at really 3 scenarios. What is, if we can only have less than 50% of our students come back, what does that look like as far as the procedures and policies across the board? If it's minimally restrictive, so maybe 75% of our kids can come back and our staff, what does that look like? And if it's, really essentially 100% we're back, what are those procedures and policies going to look like so that we can have a little bit of control over it? Obviously, it's fluid. Obviously, as we get more guidance, we may have to shift it, but it felt like we needed to start doing something. So I'm looking forward to that meeting. That'll be on the 18th. And then as we get further along, I'll probably bring in other stakeholders, parents, board members to also be a part of that conversation so that we're really getting everybody's perspective. The other thing I wanted to talk about, actually, I'm going to refer to Lisa. Obviously, there's been a lot of angst about the budget process this year and the budget vote. And with the absentee ballots, that has not gone smoothly at all. As you know, the governor just came out with another directive actually expanding the window of when we can accept ballots. The critical piece in all of this is I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are now in a very tight time frame. If the budget were to not pass, what does that look like? And as I said in the budget hearing, there are 3 scenarios. Put out the same budget, we revise the budget and put that new budget out, or we go to contingency. Given the current time frame, the only really workable solution would be the contingency, because we have to have a new spending plan in place July 1st. So I'm going to have Lisa talk a little bit about what does contingency look like for here.
right now, if you were to go to a contingency budget, we have knocked out, you could not purchase the buses. That would be number one. You'd have to look at renting them for a year. And then there was approximately $10,000 worth of equipment. When you combine those two numbers, it takes you approximately what your levy increase would have been, because your levy will revert back to a zero increase. With that being said, there is other areas that a board can look at that are considered contingent items that could be knocked out of the budget. And it ranges in everything from kindergarten to extracurricular activities, interscholastic sports, all specials, no public use of the facilities. It's quite a lengthy list. So here you are in the position and help that you could dip into your appropriated fund balance to get you through the year if you would have to go to contingency. But I think you might want to look at, you know, what are the areas that would be tripped back if the budget was to go down. So I would suggest going straight to contingency. A, financial position is good. B, the tax increase is really covering the items that we've just discussed would take out. By law, you cannot purchase those buses. So that's, you know, right there is your $250,000 basically that your levy is affording you. You know, the other fear obviously is what goes on with state aid. So at that point, I think you'd have to look at what other areas would you like to trim back that are considered contingent items. And like I said, we discussed some of those, but I would suggest going straight to contingency, given the fact that you do have the appropriate fund balance that could get you through that year without really putting you into financial harm or duress. Joanne?
No, thank you. I think that helps. Anybody have questions about what that looks like?
I just wanted to state with the governor giving 3 dates that he can come in to the district. How would that look on a contingency budget?
Approximately another $149,000 that you could take back. So all told, your entire budget increase this year of what we, projected expenditures would go up by would be wiped out. So you'd be forced to use that amount of money into fund balance should you not let it come back in some other area. So, I would look at it in the following year as far as the purchase of the buses. I would suggest that you do have a reserve. The beauty of money that you would use the reserve to purchase the buses now able to be purchased on a contingent budget, and then your next purchase of buses you would budget for as you would normally. You do have enough reserve currently to fund that expense. So I've kind of looked at, every day should this happen. I mean, you start to wonder when you start to see when your normal budget vote is less than 300 people show up, and Stephanie can tell you the number of ballots that have come back is probably triple that. So you start to wonder just how well informed, or is it just because it's in front of somebody? What are they, I have never, 31 years of working in school business, ever been under a contingent budget. I've never had a budget go down. So I don't really need it at the end of my career either.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Communications or discussion? Is there a need for executive session?
Yes.
No executive session.
I just for discussion. I just had a question. We just passed the calendar for next year. Can we make sure that gets sent out to our parents?
Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent point, Mrs. Hubley. Adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Mrs. Albright, second. Mrs. Jordan.
All in favor?
All in favor? I was too anxious.
This one.
Go ahead, finish it.
All in favor?
All in favor?
If I could just quickly, though, before we officially adjourn, I do want to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Replicki for her years of service to this district. It is her last meeting, and so
Just let me say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
if no other, I believe we're adjourned then.
Greatness, and I blew it. I could just hear Mr. McCann. Who gave McCann?
Thank you, everybody.